This is part 5 of Introduction to 3D Studio Max, building the desk scene, and we're going to model out the Mac mouse. I think a box would be a good start point. I'm going to jump over to here. I have the dimensions, 4.5 inches by 2.3 inches by 0.5 inches. So let's select everything in our scene, right click, hide selection. And we're going to hit G on the keyboard for grid, or this plus sign up here, grid. I'm going to go to the create panel, box, click and draw a box. Move tool, set the XYZ to 0, 0, and go to the modify panel. So it's going to be 4.5 inches in length. Oops, 4.5. And it's going to be 2.3 in width, and the height 0.5 inches. I'm going to hit Z on the keyboard to zoom extend, or this button down here, zoom extend. Okay, so I'm going to set the length and the width settings to 2. There we go. And I'm going to go add the edit poly modifier. Okay, so I need to add more connections in the length and the width, but I'm going to start with the width. So let's say, let me go back to my reference image. I need to create connection points for my curve to start. And of course, for the curve of the overall top, because that's really going to be the first area I'm going to work. So I'm going to go to my edge mode. I'm going to select this edge and go Alt-R on the keyboard, which is ring right here. And I'm going to go connect, add 2 connections. Okay, so that's a good start point for the arch. I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus sign, or the check mark, sorry. And let's go to the side view, left on the keyboard, Z to zoom extend. That's again this icon down here, and then left in this option over here on the left side of the screen. So let's go to vertex mode. I'm going to select the 2 outer vertices. Make sure ignore back facing is not turned on, because I should have 6 vertices selected right now. And I'm going to click and drag them down to, let's say, about there. Then I'm going to drag select over the next set, click and drag them down, and the next set, click and drag them down. Let me do this one more time. There we go. Nice arch. That works. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the top view and go to edge mode. I'm going to select this edge and go Alt-R. Again, that's ring. And I'm going to go connect once this time. So that's going to be my smooth area right there. I'm going to go ahead and hit the check mark. I'm going to go to my front view and hit Z on the keyboard for zoom extent. F on the keyboard is for front, and of course you can come over here. So this time I'm going to create the left and right bend. It's very minute, so let me go to the vertex mode, drag select over the side vertices up here, and these as well, and move them down. Not too much. And then grab these and move them down ever so slightly. So something like that. There's our arch. Now I could move down the corners just a little bit. So these 4 corner pieces, very minutely. That works. Okay, so those are done and set in place. Looking good. Let's go ahead and work on the bottom of the mouse now. So I'm going to go into edge mode. I'm going to select this edge and hit Alt-L, which is loop. Now you can see here, actually, before I do this, let's create the trying to think of the best way. Well, let's try it this way. Alt-L, click this edge, and click this edge. Alt-L. So now the whole bottom is looped. And let's go chamfer. I'm going to set the value to 0 and start dialing it up. Now I'm going to dial it all the way up till this edge combines with this edge up here. Okay. Keep going, keep going. Almost there. One more. Maybe even one more. There we go. Okay, so now this edge is completely combined What I want to do is hit the check mark. Now I've got vertices on top of vertices now, so I want to clean that up. I'm going to select everything in my scene. I'm going to go to this weld icon here. And right now I have 90, and then after I'm done doing this, I'm going to have 70. I just want to make sure that there's nothing else being welded, just vertices on top of vertices. I'm good with that, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the check mark. Okay, and just to make sure, nope, no extra vertices. All right, so let's go to the top view, T on the keyboard. And let's drag select over this vertice, the corners. So I should have 4 vertices selected. I'm going to go to my scale tool, and I'm going to scale them down on the X and Y, not the center point here. So just on the edge here, something like, let's go about there, and then maybe a little bit more on the X. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, rotate around. I'm going to hit P on the keyboard for perspective. And I'm going to grab these vertices and do the same thing. But this time, I'm going to scale them down on the Y first, and then a little bit on the X, something like that. Okay, and I'm just going to take a look at my reference image. So this is what I'm trying to create. All right. So this base is probably a little bit smaller, so I'm going to go to polygon mode, and I'm going to turn on ignore backfacing. Go to my selection tool up here, click and hold it down, and go to spray paint mode and turn on my selection tool. And now I can paint my selection area. It's a little bit faster than trying to individually click, and then I'm going to hold down Alt to get rid of anything I don't want. Make sure nothing on the top is selected. That's why we turned on ignore backfacing, and scale this down on the Y to about there. That's looking good. Okay, so now moving forward, I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to select this edge and go Alt. Actually, before I do this, let's work on the top. So we want to create the lip up here. So I'm going to go to polygon mode, and with my paint tool and my selection activated and ignore back facing checked, let me select all the polygons on the top. Okay, make sure nothing on the bottom is selected. And I'm going to go extrude. I'm going to set the value to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a look at the reference image. Oops, clicked on the wrong window. Yeah, I think 4 works. Okay, so I'm going to hit the check mark, and I'm going to go grow, and I'm going to move it down. Go to my move tool. I'm going to move it down on the Z axis. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have the same height that I had before. All right. So let's go ahead and go to edge mode now. Go Alt R, or I should say click on this edge, Alt R, which again is ring. And we're going to go connect. And hit the check mark. And I'm going to go to my scale tool and scale a little bit on the x-axis and a little bit on the y-axis to bulge it out a little bit. Okay, maybe a little bit more on x. It's looking good. Let's see here. So we have the top done. Let's create the edging here. So if you take a look at the reference image, this edging here. So I'm going to click on an edge, Alt L on the keyboard. It should loop all the way around. You see here, you can click loop. And we're going to go, let's see, chamfer. Okay, I'm going to set the value to 0, and I'm going to dial it up. I think that's too much, so I'm going to say 0.006. Yep, that's better, check mark. Go to polygon mode, go to my selection, and I'm going to change back to normal select by square. Click this polygon, hold down shift, click the one next to it so the loop selects all the way around. And I'm going to go extrude. Now you can see here, extrude shot straight down. So I'm going to go ahead and change this from group to local norms. And you can see here now it shoots out. I'm going to give this a negative value. and you can see it shoots in. Now I can go Alt-X on the keyboard is the see-through mode. Again, if you don't have shortcut keys, you can come up to View, X View, see-through right here. Okay. Let me go ahead and get out of that. Oops, let me reselect what I had. So that's looking good. It's extruding in, so I'm going to hit the check mark. All right. So everything is looking good so far, Alt-X. So let's create the same for the bottom, this edging here. Go to edge mode, Alt-L. It's not going to go all the way through, so let me select multiple edges on each side, Alt-L, and go, again, I have it looped all the way around. Chamfer, 0.06, probably a little too wide, so let's go 0.04, check mark. And we're going to go to polygon mode. Select this polygon, hold down Shift, select the one next to it, and go extrude. And -4, go Alt-X. That's good. I'm going to hit the check mark. Okay, so those are done. Now we want to work on the eyepiece right here. So let's go ahead and jump to the bottom front. So right here it says front, and here's the bottom. All right, so I'm going to go into edge mode, and I'm going to hit G on the keyboard to get rid of grid. Otherwise you have to hit here, turn off grid. I'm going to select this edge, and I'm going to go Alt-R to ring around it. Again, ring button, connect, and I think I'm good with that. So I'm going to hit the check mark. I'm going to go to polygon mode, and I'm going to select this polygon, this one, this one, and this one. And I'm going to go inset, start dialing it up to probably about there. Let me take a look at the reference image. Yeah. And I'm going to hit the check mark. Now I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to center this edge as best I can by eye. Probably something like that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, let's go to edge mode again. Let's select these three edges and these three edges. We're going to go connect. I'm going to create the borders for the eyepiece. I'm going to hit the check mark. Now I'm going to go to, I'm going to control click on vertex, and that's going to give me the ability to automatically select the vertices that were attached to those lines. Go to scale and scale them down. It's probably about there. That looks like a good square. And let's go to polygon mode. Select these 4 polygons now. Go inset. Set the value to just 0.01. Check mark. And let's go to vertex mode. Grab these vertices here. And scale them down in the X and Y. About there. So there's our circle. Now remember, we're going to add a turbo smooth, so that's going to smooth all this out. And that's why we're hand modeling these instead of using compound objects, because turbo smooth and compound objects tend not to work well with each other. So I'm going to have these polygons selected. I'm going to do an extrude and check mark. Okay. Let's see here. Now I have 5-sided objects. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have 4 of those, and that's going to be a problem with turbo smooth. So let's clean that up. Now there's 2 ways to do it: old school, which means prior to 2010, and new school. So let me show. Both of them require you to do this. You're going to go to 3D snap. You're going to turn it on. You're going to right click on it. Make sure vertex is checked and midpoint. Okay, these 2 are checked. And then you're going to come over to edge mode. And you're going to go insert vertex. So both options need you to add an extra vertex here that we're going to connect to. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click here. I'm going to turn off insert vertex, and I'm going to go to vertex mode. Okay, so I'm going to go to, this is now old school way. Old school, you would go to your cut tool, click on the vertex here, click somewhere in the polygon, and then click on the vertex. Click somewhere in the polygon. Oops, that went too far over. And click on the vertex, right click. Oh, you can see here that it gave me a problem, so I'm going to undo that. I'm going to right click to cancel. This is happening because I have the midpoint turned on in my 3D snap, so let me turn it off. and go back to my cut tool. Cut, cut, cut. Right click to cancel cut. Okay, so to finish this, I would have to select this vertex and this one and go connect and do the same thing on this side as well. Connect. Now that's old school way. Of course, I would clean it up, moving the position of the vertices. However, the new school is a lot faster. So let me go ahead and undo all that. Okay, so new school way just allows me to select these 3 vertices. In fact, let me select the bottom ones as well because I can do it all at once. I'm going to go loop, build corners. Boom. Then I can just select these vertices here, scale them in, clean it up, and these as well. Scale them in. All right. So that's really nice. And that's 2010 and above, I believe. I can't remember. So let's go to this section over here to create the, let's go to move tool, edge mode, the button area, the slider button. So I'm going to select these 3. I'm going to go connect twice. And actually, I'm going to cancel this. I think I'm going to grab these and do an inset. So, whoops, too much. Let's inset this. This is going to be smaller. The button's smaller than the eyepiece. And maybe a little bit more. That's probably good. Check mark. Go to my scale tool and make it thinner. Probably about there. Okay, so let's go to edge mode. And let's do, we need to create this as a round edge, so we need to add a bunch of edges in here. So I'm going to select this edge, and this edge, and go connect. Twice is good. And I can spread them apart a little bit. Something probably like that. Actually, I'm going to leave them at 0. Check mark. Now I'm going to go to these edges. Do the same thing down here. And go connect. This time I'm going to connect once. Check mark. And then I might as well just deselect these lines down here. Move this up. Let me turn off 3D Snap. Move them up to about there. Actually, let's go down a little bit more. Do the same thing with these down here. So that's probably good. Let's go to vertex mode and select these vertices on the outer sides. Use the scale tool and scale them down on the X and Y. There. Now I have my pill shape. I'm going to go to polygon mode and go ahead and do extrude, hit the check mark. But now you can see I have a bunch of, let's see, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 polygon side. And this is like a 5 right here, 5. So I've got a bunch of things I have to clean up. So again, let's clean up the side ones first, which is these vertices here. Let me go to vertex mode. All right, and to do so, we'll do the same way we did up here. We're going to go edge mode, turn on 3D Snap, make sure midpoint is checked. And, excuse me, insert vertex and insert a vertex here and here. Right click to cancel or to deactivate insert vertex. I'm going to go to vertex mode. And since you already know how to do it the old school way, I'm just going to demonstrate the new school way. Turn off 3D Snap. Grab all these vertices here that are creating multi-sided objects and go loop, build corner. Voila. And then I'm going to do these. These are really easy. I'm going to go loop, build end. And otherwise you'll have to cut that. Cut a square and then do your connections. And I'm done. Of course I can come in here and clean this up a bit. It's not really that necessary. But, all right, and of course if I hit F4, people are never going to see that stuff anyway. So that's just keeping clean geometry for the Turbo Smooth. And in the little button area, I'm going to create a cylinder for that. And let's start with the bottom piece down here now. Okay, so let's move to the bottom. Let's go to polygon mode. I'm going to select these 2 polygons here. And I'm going to go inset. Let's probably a little too much. Let's dial it back a little bit. It's probably good. Hit the check mark, and with my scale tool activated, slide it in to about there. That's probably good. Let me zoom up. A little bit thinner, actually. Okay. So now that I have that in place, I'm just going to do extrude, hit the check mark. Actually, sorry, Control Z, make sure there is no extrude in this. Let me go to my move tool. Okay, there's not. All right, so what I want to do is, I almost forgot, this is a round button like the other pieces, so we need to add some extra edges, just like before. Select these four, connect, check mark, hold down Control, select vertex, use your scale tool, scale these out, say to about there. Go to edge mode again, select these edges down the center, and go connect twice. This time I can pinch them apart to about there, check mark, and use my vertex to scale down these corners. That's probably good right there. Now it's round. Now we can go to polygon mode and extrude. This one I'm going to extrude a little bit less. Oops. So let's go 0.02 maybe. Negative, sorry. 0.01. Check mark. And then of course the black button I will model out as a separate element. Okay. So that's almost done. We do need to clean up the geometry just like we've done before. So edge mode, turn on 3D snap, go to insert vertex, click, right click to deactivate and turn off 3D snap. And go ahead and come in here, go to select tool, grab these, loops, build corners, just like that. And this last two, or four I should say, I can just go loops, build ends. And that's done. So we have the bottom button area, the eyepiece, and the little cylinder. I did a lot of research into the eyepiece and I couldn't find really anything. And the images are too small, so I think I'm just going to texture it black. I might add something in Photoshop, but I will texture it instead of trying to model it out. And the only thing we have left is these corner pieces, which we'll model out separately from the object as well, because they stick out a little bit. So let me see here. I think that's pretty much it with this object. So real quick, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go to polygon mode, or sorry, vertex mode, select the whole thing, turn off ignore back facing and select the whole thing. Okay. And we're going to go to the Weld dialog. Now you can see here it collapsed a lot down. I'm going to go ahead and set this value to 0. And it's not welding anything together. I just wanted to make sure there's no extra vertices on top of vertices. So I'm going to go ahead and check mark. Okay, so we're looking good. Let's save this. Okay, so let's prep this for turbo smoothing. We're going to use smoothing group. So I'm going to go to polygon mode and drag select over the whole thing. Okay, the whole thing is selected. And right here it says polygon smoothing groups. We're going to sit there and say clear and set it to 1. Now the way smoothing groups works is that any polygon that has the same number will be smoothed together. And if they have a different number, they won't be smoothed together. So if I click off this now, it's you can see even the shading looks really smooth. So let's go ahead and come in here and I'm going to grab this edge, hold down shift, the edge next to it. So it loops all the way around. I'm going to say clear all. I'm going to set it to 3. Okay, so everything else has 1 and this outer edge has 3. And you can see here, It's cleaned up that weird shading that was going on the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here and click a polygon on the inside. Hold down Shift to loop it and hit Alt X to make sure I have it looped. And I'm going to go ahead and say clear all. I'm going to say grow actually and go clear all again. I'm going to set this value to 2. So that way it doesn't match up with this edge up here or the bottom edge down here. It's its own edging. Then I'm going to say shrink. I'm going to clear all and say 1. And the reason why I can do 1 back here is because this edge on the inside is not touching any of the ones on the outside. Okay. So let me go ahead and Alt X to come out of that. So that cleans up that. You can see it cleaned up this area. So let's go ahead and zoom in here and do the same thing. Click, Alt X, Shift click so it loops. We're going to go grow, clear all, set it to 2. And I'm going to say shrink, clear all, 1. Okay. And then turn Alt X off. Do the same thing. You can see now this whole area cleaned up where we don't have that weird black shading going on, but we still have it in here. So I'm going to click this, Shift click, clear all, and call it, this is going to be 2. Same thing with this one. Let me turn on Select Tool. Clear all, 2. And last but not least, this back here. Clear all, 2. All right, so now it's prepped and ready for turbo smoothing, but we're not going to add that yet. We're actually going to unwrap. So I'm going to turn off polygon mode and go to my dialog, and we're going to use Unwrap UVW. Okay. And let's go ahead and start breaking this thing apart. So I'm going to do this slightly different than we've done before. I'm going to go into, let's see here, vertex mode. And I'm going to say under map seams, I'm going to turn that off. So that turns off the green lines because we're going to create blue lines, pelt seams. So I'm going to click this here, point to point seams. I'm literally going to go through and I'm going to break this thing apart to where I want the seams to be. So I'm dictating where I'm cutting it. So I'm going to say this corner here, and I'm going to click on this corner here so you can see it draws a line between the 2 points. I have to be careful that I can't go too far because it will try to find some indirect route. Okay, that's good. That's good. There we go. So that's the top part. Now I want to cut each corner. And the reason why I'm cutting each corner is because I know for a fact that, by the way, when I right click, I deactivate the cut. I forgot to mention that. So I'm left clicking to create the cut, right clicking to deactivate. But anyway, I'm cutting the corners because I'm not going to do anything that's going to need to be wrapped right here in the texture. So this flattens out pretty nice. I might have something wrapped over the edge, but I doubt it because I think the only thing on this is the Apple sign back here on the back side. Well, I guess it's back here. So all right, now I have the top all cut up the way I want it. I'm going to hit Alt X to go inside. And on the inside, I'm actually going to do this. I'm just going to come up to the front here. And I'm going to click from this edge to this edge. So it cuts on the inside just like that. Okay. And again, I'm not worried about the inside polygons that much, to be honest. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the bottom out. Let's go Alt X. Oops. See, you got to pay attention. Make sure it's not going through some weird path, because sometimes it will do that. And we're back to the beginning. Okay, so those two sections are taken out. Let's do the bottom here. So Alt X, and again, I'm going to just cut straight through here. Actually, yeah, that's fine. Oops, it didn't cut all the way. There we go. So now I'm going to cut this, and the reason why I'm not too worried about the inside area is because that's going to be a solid black color. In fact, most of this is just going to be one solid color or another. but this is a good learning experience for unwrapping. Okay, so I'm flying around here. There. Need to do the same thing on this side. Oops. Click, click. Yeah, I tried to find a shortcut. There we go. Okay, so that's closed. I could do the same thing with these hole areas. Okay. And then I could do the edging. I'm not too worried about, in fact, what I'm going to do is just do these corners here. So that way the edging splits apart all as one piece, but then has a nice little cut on each corner. And it will all make more sense once I show you how this is going to tear apart. Okay. That should be good enough. All right, so that's the bottom. Let's just do the top real quick. And let's cut this out. Let's cut this section out. Kind of do a splice line there, that's fine. And last but not least, let's do this as well. And there we go. And I can actually make a slit just like that to break that up inside. All right, we're looking good. So now let's start breaking this thing apart. I'm going to go ahead and open up UV Editor, and I'm just going to go ahead and go to Polygon mode and select all the UVs, and I'm just going to pull them off to the side. Then I'm going to start with the top here. So I'm going to select one box, and I'm going to say expand. Make sure you click this option right here, expand to selection, and we're going to do quick peel. And you can see here, it broke it apart for me. And just to make sure, I'm going to go Tools and go down to Relax. Keep this window open. And I'm going to say Start Relax. You can see here, quick peel created something that wasn't, well, let me go to Polygon Angles. Quick peel, there we go. That's better. Okay, that's much better. Now, if I want to see what this texture pattern, the grid pattern here looks like on my object, I can actually just click texture pattern, and you can see here, voila. And what I'm looking for is to make sure all my squares are the same size, that they're not being stretched, or some are small and some are big, and that's pretty clean. And you can, if I zoom in here, why we added the little cuts in the corner is because it allowed it to split. So it wouldn't stretch here in the corner. Now, if I was creating a texture that had a loop there, that would be very problematic. But we don't. So moving forward, let's click on this and go expand to selection and say, this time I'll just use pelt, just to show you the difference between the two. So it brings up pelt mapping options. You can go through and play with the stretcher settings. I know a lot of people do 0.5 pull strength, 0.5 dampening, and stiffness 0.5. And then go start pelt, and then click commit. Now this is not the right shape, so I'm going to go ahead and hit, I'm going to set the amount for my relax to 1, start relax. Let me try edge angles and polygon angles. There we go. So I had to keep going until it cleaned up the shape. That's good. You can see here everything is now the same size. So I can pull this off to the side and just repeat the process. This time I'm going to go back to my quick peel That gave me the best results with having to fight the least. Yep, looks like everything's good with this one. So I'm going to put it over here, go to this one, select, and what this tool does is selects to the borders that we created. Forgot to mention that. There's the eyepiece. There's the button area. Oops. Now I'm going to go to these edging in here and go the pelt map this time. Start pelt map, commit, and start relax. So there we have it. There's the edging. Same thing in here. Pelt, start pelt, commit, start relax. Okay, move this off to the side. Can rotate it if I want. Not too worried about where it's positioned or its scale right now, because I'm going to click a button to clean all that up. And let's see here, we have this. Let's go peel and start relax. And that looks like it did the whole area in there. That's good. So move that off to the side. Now we have these polygons in here. Pelt, start pelt, click commit, start relax. Let's try edge angles. And go back to polygon angles. And I'm not really too worried about what these look like because they're just going to all share the same color. So let me just scale this down and get it out of my way. All right, so that's done. And last but not least is these, which are just the, make sure that's it. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and say pelt, start pelt, commit, start relax. In fact, actually, let me go back to pelt. Let me go to select stretcher and scale it. Now again, your move, rotate, scale, and then this is free transform, allows me to move, rotate, and scale an object. Forgot to mention that earlier. Let me scale this out and go start pelt. There we go. Commit, start relax, and it still turned into a big ugly mess. Okay, so let me scale this down. All right, so let's select everything that we have here. And this icon right here will pack the UVs and scale them to fit what they're supposed to be to each other. All right, excuse me. So I can close this for now and just work in this area. So what I want to do is focus on the important pieces, and the other pieces I don't need. So first of all, I'm going to turn on element mode. That allows me, when I select a element, it selects the whole thing instead of just one polygon. So I'm going to grab these two guys, hold down Control, and scale them down because these are not important. And this is not important. So let me pull this off to the side. This is not important. This is the eyepiece, that's fairly important. This is the back button area, that's not really that important because it's all one color. So let me just put it over here for right now. This is the button area. That's really not that important either because it's one solid green color. I'll put it over here as well. So these are the important areas. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start, let me rotate, let me put this one on the bottom. This one I'm not actually drawing with. Now I'm going to undo that. If I turn on rotate snap, it will rotate it exactly 90. So put that here. Oops. Put this here. And let's grab these guys and scale them up. So the idea is I want to make this as big as possible in my viewport. And it looks like if I actually move this guy over here, I might be able to get some more scale out of this to get him even bigger. Let's move this. Oops. And this. And maybe this. Scale it up. There we go. That's looking good. And the eyepiece needs to be scaled way up, just in case I do some kind of weird, or not weird, but try to model, or not model, but paint out the eye. What's the word I'm looking for? The actual lasers and all that stuff that's in there. And I can just scale these up for kicks and giggles, since I got all this extra space. All right, so we're good. Now it's unwrapped. I'm going to go ahead and go to Tools, Render UV Template, and I'm going to render this out a little bit bigger, 2048. Actually, I don't need it to be huge in this case, so I'm just going to stick with the 1024. Because we're just putting an Apple symbol pretty much on these. And I'm going to set it to, normal. Render UV Template. There we go. And click Save. And let's put it in the Textures folder. And we'll call this a PNG, or sorry, JPEG. And we'll call this Mouse UVW Template. Oops. PLAT. Save. Click OK. And I can close this out now. Close this. Close this. All right, so the UV template is done. Our UVing is done. I'm going to go ahead and rename this actually, MOUSE. And let's go ahead and add the Turbo Smooth real quick. Turbo Smooth. And I'm going to set to smoothing groups. And you can see the difference when it reads the groups, how it's smoothing in between. So that's pretty cool. Let me dial up the iterations. There we go. So now I have a beautiful Mac mouse. Okay, so the Turbo Smooth is done. These extra little components you guys should be able to do on your own, but basically, let's say I'm going to go Alt-W. In fact, let me go back to Turbo Smooth and turn it down so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's zoom in here, create panel, cylinder, click and drag. Oops, I got to drag it big enough for it to create. Let's position it in here, scale it way down. Do something like that. It's a little bit bigger. Let's go 4.5. There we go. And the height, way too tall. No height segments is necessary. And that looks good. Okay, let me just change its color code to green because it is green. And of course I would throw a material on it. All right, so that's done. And then the little button in the back box. Oops. Which is going to be here. Go ahead and set the X position to 0. So I know it's centered with the mouse. And let's go ahead and I think its shape is pretty much good. Let me zoom out to the side. Its height is a little too high. There we go. Let's go ahead and add the Edit Poly modifier. Go to Edge mode. In fact, actually, sorry, let me go back to the box. I'm going to set the width and length segments to 1 and 1. Edit Poly, go to Edge. I'm going to drag select through these side edges. And I'm going to go, whoops, chamfer. I'm going to dial this up. Let me set it to 0, sorry, and start dialing it up. Increase the amount of segments. Hit Z on the keyboard to zoom extent. Yep, created the nice little round buttons. Okay. So that works. I'm going to go ahead and hit check mark. I'm going to go again to edges, select these edges, go connect. Just once, click it. And I'm going to go to, sorry, polygon mode. I'm going to select the polygon on the back side. Let me go click on this guy and go Alt X so I can see through it. Click him again. F4 on the keyboard to show wireframe. There we go. I selected the bottom polygon there. And hit Z on the keyboard. See, it's really small, so it's hard to zoom in. So I'm going to actually, in my side viewport here, click and drag to grab those polygons and go extrude. Dial up, so way too far. Just like that. Click the check mark. Turn this off, and let me just give it a black. Okay, so let me Alt X. So the black button's set, the green button's set, except for actually putting textures on them. Now the side little panels, let me go back to Edit Poly. I'm going to say no. Side panels here. Actually, yes, I'm going to go back to Edit Poly. Yes. Go to Polygon mode. And I'm going to select these polygons. I'm going to go to my selection tool. I'm going to go to my move tool, and I'm going to hold down, see my left viewport, hold down shift and drag it down a little bit. And I'm going to say clone to object, and I'll say mouse legs. I think that's what these are. Click OK. Turn off Edit Poly. I'm just going to make sure this wasn't messed up. Good. Okay, so that's all done. Now I can go back to these guys. Go to my move tool. I'm going to move them back up to the base and go inside of it a little bit. That's fine. Go to polygon mode, and I'm going to go extrude. Set the value to 0.1. That's probably good. All right, hit the check mark. So that's been implemented. Let me go Alt W to maximize this. Okay, so we have now the legs, but let's add the turbo smooth to them. So turn off Edit Poly, go all the way down to turbo smooth. And you can see here they smoothed out too much in certain areas. So I'm going to go to Edit Poly, go to Edge Mode, and I'm going to select actually everything. Let me go to Clear All, set it to 1. And I'm going to select this edge, hold down Shift, Clear All, set it to 2. Do the same thing on this side. Clear All, set it to 2. And I'm actually going to have to select these guys, because now if I go here, I still need to create the hard edge. So let me go back to my select tool. Those edges, and I'm going to say clear all, set it to 3. And now if I go here, you can see, oh, I need to go to Turbo Smooth and turn on smoothing groups. There we go. So let's do the same thing to the other side. Clear all, set it to 3. Okay. Turbo Smooth. Looking good. So now we want to go back to Edit Poly, turn on the stack, what's in the stack, so I can actually position these vertices. In fact, actually, let me just do both sides at the same time. Control Select. Move them down. And grab these outer ones. Move them up. And I can go to Turbo Smooth, do, let's say 2. There we go. And I would do the same thing to this side back here. So Polygon, Vertex, grab all this. Actually, let me just grab these two. Pull them down. Grab these two. Pull them up. Go to this guy, increase the Turbo Smooth to 2. And there we have it. Now these are black as well. You can set them to the black wireframe. And now all we need to do is go into Photoshop and create the texture for the mouse. So let's go ahead and go save. I've opened up Photoshop. Let me drag and drop the mouse texture into here. Okay. So we know that the top is going to be white, the bottom one is going to be gray, and then I have the Apple logos. So I already have the Apple logo in my folder, but if you need a higher res version of it, you can actually go to a place called brandsoftheworld.com, and then you can type in Apple. So again, brandsoftheworld.com, and you can find an Apple logo. And these are vector files, so they're going to be high res, very high res, because it's a vector. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in my Apple. And let's see here, there's a few things I want to do to it. First of all, I can't really do anything. I'm going to enter right now to set it. If older versions of Macs didn't automatically set it to free transform mode when you drag and drop it. But anyway, in my layers panel, you can see that it's a smart object, and I want to right click and say rasterize. That way I can modify it. I'm going to go to my magic wand tool. I'm going to select the white areas and hit delete. Control D for deselect, or you have to go select, deselect. Okay. So now I'm going to go to my move tool, select my object, and if you go edit, free transform, which is Control T, that allows me to roll over the corners to rotate it. Now the reason why I know that this is upside down is because all these are the front of the mouse, and this is the back, so that's why I flipped it upside down. So let me scale this down. And again, if you need to check this, go back to 3D Studio Max to see where your mapping lies. Go to UVW map, go open editor, and let's just say drag select over this section. Oops, let me turn off element mode. Okay, and you'll see here that section's the front. Okay, so let me go ahead and close that. Turn this off, go back to Turbo Smooth. Come back out of here. All right, so my Apple logo is here. See if I look at the references, it's not very large, so let's go ahead and decrease the size. There's two of them. On the front and back, they're about the same size, so let me go ahead, scale this down. It goes right about there. Hit enter. Now it's a gray logo, so I'm going to go ahead and go image adjust levels, Control L on the keyboard, and take this black slider, drag it toward the white, and it makes it more gray. So let's say something like that. Hit the check mark. And I'm going to hit Control J on the keyboard as a shortcut key for duplicate. Otherwise, you have to click and drag it to this paper icon, and it makes a duplicate. Okay. So I'm going to grab this guy, move it to the center here. There we go. Now the text that sits at the bottom, I don't know what it says. You guys can go research it, but I don't have enough time to. So you just go research it. You take your text tool and type something. This is a mouse. Okay, I can change under my text or character panel. If you don't see that, you can go Windows, Character. All right. Under here, I can say, let's say 15 or 12. And I'm going to hit Control T to rotate it 180 degrees. And then I can put it somewhere like there. Okay. And it's also gray, so I'm going to set its color to a gray tone. I can actually select this gray, so it's the same color, which I think it is. Maybe a little darker. All right, I'll have to play more with that once I color this gray, because again, the white top is white, bottom's gray. Okay, so we go to layers now, and I'm going to click on the background layer, and I'm going to hit the paper icon right here. It creates a new layer, and I'm going to go with my paintbrush, set it to white. I'm going to paint. Now, if you don't like the looks of your paintbrush, you can come over here, select this icon right here. You have spacing, which I have mine set to 1. You have soft brush, hard brush, different types of brushes. And up here, you can change the scale, or the brackets right next to P on the keyboard will change the scale of your brush as well. So let me just dial it up. If you click and then shift click somewhere else, it draws a straight line between those 2 points. So that's my white area, and everything else is going to be gray or black. So I'm going to switch to my black mode. These are all black. Whoops, that doesn't look like it's quite black. There we go. Okay. And let's go now to a gray mode. So maybe something like that. I'm going to create, I won't even worry about new layer. So paint this, paint this, paint this for sure. And then I'm just going to decrease the mouse size, paint this guy. Okay. And this is green, so let's switch my color to a neon green. And this area I'm going to paint as black. But first, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to use maybe an offset, a couple different offsets of gray. Let's just increase my brush size a little bit. Click, new layer. Let's do a different offset of gray. Just create some kind of different pattern in here. And then let me go one more new layer. Okay, and that's probably too bright, so I'm going to hit Control L on the keyboard, which is levels again. Take the white, bring it down. Say something like that. And so I have these three layers right here, which are the ones that I was just painting in. I'm going to hit Control E. That's the shortcut key for merge. Otherwise, you have to hit this icon right here. Did I hit the right one? And merge down right here, Control E. Okay, so those are, let me take one more layer, put it below the dots, and use my black. If you click this icon, it resets everything. There we go. Just to make it slightly different. In fact, I can make this layer a little bit darker. Control L, and bring the white down. Okay, so there we have it. I'm going to hit save, Control S. And I'm going to save it as a PSD file first. So I'm going to say mouse texture. TX is fine. And hit save. Click OK. Then I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm going to save it as a PNG. And mouse text PNG or JPEG or TIFF or TAR, whatever you want to choose. Click Save. Click OK. So that's the main texture. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead, excuse me, I'm going to create a new folder and drag and drop, oops, all this stuff to the new folder. Okay. And I'm going to call this texture. And then I'm going to create one more for specular, one more folder, or one more layer. Specular, and actually let me create a folder for it, just in case I have to have multiple layers. So specular. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to hide my texture layer, and this is where I'm going to use a black and white image to control how specular something is going to be. So white is utmost specular, so I want the top part to be white. And the bottom is black is not specular at all. I don't want a black, but I do want to tone it down. So let me go somewhere around there. And this is going to be somewhat specular. All of it. Okay, so it's a black and white image. I may have accidentally crossed lines, so let me just switch. If I want to double check, I can just decrease the opacity. That looks good. Increase it to 100%. Now I can hit Shift Control S to save it. And I'm going to save this one as a PNG. And this one's going to be mouse texture, mouse spec for specular. Okay. And hit save. Click OK. And I'm just going to hit save again to save the Photoshop file and close. Let's go back to 3D Studio Max, open up the material editor. So let's see, I'm going to slide over, click this material, call this one mouse, and I'm going to click the diffuse box, bitmap, and we're going to use the mouse texture, click open. I'm going to hit the up arrow and turn it on, and I'm going to apply it. to selection. So voila, there is my texture on my mouse. Okay, so let's increase the specular. Something like that, render. All right, so now what I need to do is bring in the specular control map. So if you show specular level, I'm going to click this right here. I'm going to go bitmap and mouse spec, open, and click the up arrow. So what again, black and white, black meaning that it controls, there's going to be no specular, white meaning it's going to be most specular, and the grays in between are going to be variants, of course. So that's how you control a specular map. It's how you control any map. If you want to control your reflections, you want to control diffuse, bitmap, all of it. All right, that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and save. Actually, no, real quick. Let's go to materials. Sorry, let's actually throw down materials for these things. So they actually have a true material on them. This one's going to be black. Call this mouse feet. All right, and this actually can share the button as well. And then this little guy right here is going to get mouse button. Select, and this one's neon green. Something like that. I'm going to hit F4 to turn off wireframe. There we have it. Go ahead and close this. Let me just increase this a little bit. All right, so I'm going to select everything in my scene, come up to group, and say group. So it's all one object. I'm going to call it mouse. Hit save on my file, and go ahead and do right-click, unhide all. Okay, so with my mouse selected, I need to move it into position. So let's go ahead and move it down, over, and up. So we can go to a left viewport, or actually the front viewport probably would be the best angle. F on the keyboard, of course, is the shortcut key for front. And there you have it. So there's the mouse. I'm going to hit P on the keyboard for perspective. Bring it over, maybe rotate it a little bit. And voila. Or maybe rotate it in the other direction. Of course, you can create a mouse pad for it. But I think right now what we're going to do is, because I'm running out of time, we're going to call this a day. So go ahead and join me for part 6, and we're going to model more stuff out on the desk.